Hello, my name is Matt Roberts and I'm the Director of Research and Analytics at Formula One. And today I'm going to take you through a case study for a piece of work that we're doing with Populous called Winning the Hearts and Minds of Fans of Biometrics. I'll talk you a bit through the methodology and then give you some insights from the study before telling you how the study has been used at Formula One to help improve the business. For those of you who are aware, F1 has been going through a huge change over the last few years. And here's a quote actually from our chairman, Chase Carey, when he came in 2017, when Liberty took over the sport. Basically, he felt that F1 had a huge potential and there was so many untapped opportunity to improve the brand, but also improve the racing experience. You'd had many of the same winners year on year, the same team winning year on year, the same teams appearing on the podium, and very little chance for some of the smaller teams to compete within the sport. And it very much became our objective to improve the sport of Formula One. We wanted to make the sport more culturally relevant. Traditionally, we've been big in some markets and not less big in other markets, and big against some demographics and much bigger than against other demographics. So we wanted to make sure that we were much more culturally relevant to a wider group of people. We wanted to grow our fan base. We wanted to actually create more media opportunities. You would have seen that F1 has ventured into esports, Netflix, many other areas that it hadn't previously been in before 2017. We also wanted to make sure we kind of visited untapped markets and grew in untapped markets. So you would have seen that we've launched a Vietnamese Grand Prix. We're having a big push in China, which is a bit of an untapped market for us, and there are huge opportunities there. As I said, there's a real opportunity at Formula One to improve um, the racing performance, but it's also really important for us to improve the viewing experience for those people watching at home. We know that the majority of our fans are actually watching our content on TV at home. So TV is still very much king for us. And one thing that we wanted to do is actually improve that experience for those 400 million fans who are watching on our TV broadcast every year. And that's one reason why we commissioned this particular study. And I'll talk a bit more in detail about that in a second. Traditionally, when we first came in, we wanted to improve that experience around the TV content. We were doing kind of quite traditional market research, surveys, dial testing. But what we found out very quickly was that people kind of they only result in rational sort of in a rational way, not in an emotional way. We found out that people, often if Lewis Hamilton was overtaking someone, people would say, "Yeah, I'm really happy now. Lewis Hamilton has overtaken someone." But if it wasn't very exciting on the track, that kind of emotional aspect didn't really come into play. The other thing with traditional market research methods were that we found out quite quickly what made fans engaged, but we didn't know what didn't make fans engaged. So what did we need to improve? So we had very much the highs, but we didn't really get the lows. And I think that was really, really important why we commissioned this particular piece of work. So what we did, we wanted to use the latest sort of neuroscience sort of techniques available to us to try and get a full picture and combine this data with the market research that I've already talked about. So the method of neuroscience that we went with was galvanic skin response testing. And what's really great about this is it's passive. The person doesn't need to do anything. It will just measure essentially their emotional arousal. So their levels of sweat will often be a trigger of their emotional arousal and stress when watching an F1 race. It's the great thing about what we did was actually it was in a natural environment, and I think it's the very first ever long form sports at home galvanic skin response test. It's done in the moment, it's reliable, and people in their natural environments. Traditionally, these guys may have had to gone to labs and watch together in a lab, but these guys were in their home environment. So what we did, and now we're doing this at every race on the F1 calendar, is we recruit 100 F1 viewers to take part. And these F1 viewers are, they're a mixture of different demographics. They are a mixture of avid fans and casual fans. So they're not all just very hardcore F1 fans. Once we have picked our participants, we set them up at home. So we send them the device, and you can see in this video, this is what people need to do. They wear the device on their hands. Very, very easy to set up. And that's what they do. They just wear that device for the entirety of the race. So as I said, they just watch the race with the device on their hand, and the device will essentially measure their emotional arousal. It will capture their engagement. It will also pick up their down moments when they're not engaged. And then the results are essentially fed into a dashboard, a second by second dashboard, which will allow us to understand the highs, the lows, what do we need to improve. We know as a sport that the traditional casual fan, so i.e. not someone who watches every race, but someone who may tune in for 2 or 3 races a year, we have about 11 minutes before they often switch over. So they'll come in for the first 11 minutes, watch the start of the race, and then they will leave and come back only for the very end. So we know that we need to keep them there. So if there's suddenly after 11 minutes massive down points where people aren't engaged, we need to find out what do we need to do to actually get those people back and stay for longer, because the longer people stay, the better our TV ratings and the more revenue that is worth to us as a business. So this is a chart from the 2018 British Grand Prix, and you can see how the engagement changes, and this is the output that we get and that we provide to our teams, particularly our TV production teams. So you can see in the right hand corner the live video, so people can click on the down point or the up point and see what was happening, and then you can see this whole kind of idea of that kind of race trace, and you see a huge spike at the beginning. There's a bit of a lull in the middle, and then there's an increase in engagement towards the end, and then it drops off after the podium ceremony. So you can see there, as I said, the opening credits, the race start, the safety car. So you can see the safety car moment in that red label is basically there had been a crash and a safety car came out for a number of minutes. And you can see here what that does to engagement for our sport. We see a huge drop off then in engagement. And if that safety car goes on a long time, people will switch over and they may not come back. So it just shows the importance of understanding, well, what can we do in that safety car moment to try and improve engagement? And I'll show you a slide in a minute, which will show you how we could overcome this problem. So this is the opening credits of Silverstone 2018. So I'm going to play this video and hopefully it will work. You get some sound. I'm not sure you're going to get sound, but basically you can see we put on the screen there some facts about Great Britain. It's a British Grand Prix, and you can see people generally getting pretty bored of these facts. It doesn't look particularly great on the screen. Fans, they've read them. They stay on the screen for a long time, but then we start talking about Silverstone and what the track actually looks like, the turns, and you can see suddenly engagement spikes back up, which really shows that actually for us it was a learning of we really needed to adapt these opening credits, and you'll see shortly what we did to help improve the opening credits moving forward. So if you take Australia from the following year, this was where we actually made some changes as a result of what we had found out from the previous year from Silverstone. So you can see there now the kind of country facts, they're cleaner, they're less of a list, they don't stay on screen for very long. There's some good aerial shots of Melbourne, and actually they move pretty quickly through then to go to the track information, and that trace just goes up without that big spike, as you can see in the top right hand corner, the Silverstone spike. So this is what we did. We essentially tidied up those opening credits and improved that content for fans. And this is really important for us because We have 21 race promoters, many of whom are trying to market their country. So we need to do these opening credits to the best of our abilities to try and market our countries where we are racing.
Maybe they're
This is an
rivals. Ted,
example
what do
of
you
the
think?
safety
I mean,
car.
they did have a set
As I talked
of
about,
soft
so you
tyres
can
that
see
only got a
here,
few laps, 3 laps on it. But I tend
the
to
safety
agree
car comes
with you
out,
there, and
and then
Crofty, and
suddenly the
also the fact that
engagement
they are
starts
just
to
going
drop.
so well.
I don't know if you
I think
can
they're
hear
doing
sound
a
on
little
your
bit
version,
of a
but
fuel save
at
in
the
the middle
moment
of the
you've got
period
the
of the race.
commentator
And they're going
talking,
so well on this
and
medium
then
tyre
the
that I think for Hamilton
safety
it was
car
the only
actually,
decision. Maybe
people
for
start getting
Bottas
bored,
they
so
should have pitted
engagement
him.
goes down.
Let's go down to the pit wall once again. The Red Bull pit wall, Christian Horner,
And then
safety car coming
Sky
out.
bring in
Christian,
Christian
you are
Horner,
right
who's
back
in
in
charge
this
of Red
race
Bull,
now.
to talk about
Well, it's going
what
to be
his
fascinating
team are
run to
doing.
the end because you've got a whole
And
mishmash
you
of
can
different
see that
tyres on
suddenly
different
there's a big
cars.
uplift in engagement.
Obviously, both Mercedes on the hard, and the Ferraris ourselves on the soft. Unfortunately, Daniel's lost out on that safety
This is
car.
something that
He
we
pitted
can do
2
as a
laps
sport
earlier, but he's
to
got a
improve
good
these
tyre
lulls.
on,
We can
as
bring
is
in
Max, to
more
the end of the
experts
race.
to talk
Christian, we
about what's
often play the
happening during
game,
the
what would
race.
you do, Martin? I'd like to play the game now, what would you do, Christian? If you were Mercedes, would you have pitted your drivers under the safety car, or did what they did and kept them out?
It's tricky to know where their deck is and so on. I don't know, probably would have left out Lewis because of
So you can see there just how much impact having a team principal come on and talk about what his team were doing in live action really helped improve that engagement. And it's great. This gives us great ideas to go back to all our broadcasters and try and incorporate some of these techniques to try and improve that engagement level for fans. So as you can see here, the data has really helped us in a number of ways. It's helped us understand how to manage onboard cameras. So when you have a camera close in on a driver, what we found out from the research was that if a car is in front, like in this example here, people are very, very engaged. But if it's just Lewis Hamilton and there's nobody in front of him, people get a bit bored of those onboard cameras. So it allows us to understand what works and what doesn't work. It allows us to understand what works in terms of analysts and commentators and what do people find most engaging. And again, we feed this back to our broadcasters so they are well aware. Replays. How many times should we show a replay? What's the optimum length of a replay? How long before people get bored of seeing the same incident happen over and over again? These are all questions that we can answer via this market research. On-screen graphics, again, we can find out, are graphics working? Are they engaging people? Are they not engaging people? Which graphics engage people more than others? And then we can find out what's the response to things like midfield battles. Are people more likely to want to see 1 or 2 drivers out in front with no competition, or see a 10th versus 11th sort of battle in the middle of the field? Again, the data really helps us to understand what drives engagement. And then this is fed back to our TV broadcast team. It's fed back to our motorsport team in terms of how can we improve racing and the sport of F1 generally. What's more, on top of all that very positive impact it can have for the business, for the actual respondent, it's also a great survey to do. You can see here that 68% say it's more fun to do than the survey, because all they've got to do is sit there and watch the race. 83% say it's easy to use, and then 97% say they would like to do it again. So it's a great research technique which engages people who do it and really helps us as the client as well. What's important as well is that it's only 100 fans per race, but pre the race, we asked people if F1 puts fans first. 47% agreed with that statement. And actually post race, that went up to 65% across all the races that we had done this methodology. So again, it also helps fans think that F1 is really listening or listening to them and understanding how they engage with the sport at the moment. So yeah, as I said, I've shown you a number of examples of how this piece of work really has helped make decisions and inform decisions at Formula One. And for someone like me who works on the client side, this is really, really positive. It's really rewarding seeing your work actually used in person to help make decisions. But we're not resting on our laurels. We are doing this now at every race in 2020 and 2021. This allows us to look at lots of different race and race comparisons, looking at one year versus the next. We may have a really strong year one year for one race and a weaker year in terms of engagement, and that allows us to build up that kind of bank of knowledge. As I've said before, it will continue to inform production decisions about what we show on the screen and what you see when you watch F1 at home. We're going to start looking at hopefully exploring the differences versus other F1 sessions, so the practice session, qualifying, Formula 2, to understand what drives engagement for these other sessions. There's also been talk of maybe doing this with spectators at races when we get them back hopefully next year. So there are so many use cases for this particular methodology. And then the other thing which is key is to be able to start overlaying other data sets, so TV viewing data, the data we had from the dial test, to get a bigger picture and be able to triangulate the data that we have to really help inform those decisions that we are making. But generally, we think it's been a great project. I've been really happy to share it with you, and I look forward to receiving your questions. Thank you.